everyone and welcome to my channel! Wait, someone is missing here. Okay, now that there is also my latest doll, check my previous video to see how I made him, we can finally start to talk about the topic of this video. Today I'll show you how I made my doll for the Divus collab created by Dollmotion. And since we were asked basically to create a doll that represented an animal, I chose my favorite one, the penguin. Why? Because it is super cute, and above all, he is a character from Evangelion. So, as you can see by this poorly made sketch, I want to do a 15-year-old girl using mainly black and white, kinda like the yin-yang symbol, more or less, and light blue as an accent color, but their body will actually be grey, because I envisioned her to have a sort of growth delay that made her stay in her baby penguin form, only because baby penguins are above cuteness. Look at them, oh. And side note, you can see her finished with all the other beautiful dolls made by the other participant of the collab in the video on Dollmotion channel. After my usual long introduction, let's start the repaint. So for this custom, I decided to use Goliath's body with an apple white head. Now let's grab some hot water to behead both of them. I decided to use Goliath's body because it is already grey, and the white head because I think that a really rounded ever after eye-like head can really fit a penguin character. Now we can remove the remaining hair from Apple's head with some pliers. And since she was a used doll, they were super gross and sticky, so I was really glad to get rid of them. Now I'm removing the face up with some nail polish remover that contains acetone. And in honor of Dollmotion herself, I'm removing her ears with a cutter, because penguins don't have human ears, obviously. And now I'm painting the head with really watery acrylics to not show any brushstroke. Let's start focusing on the body, because we have to change it a lot. In fact, I want to significantly shorten her legs, to make her shorter, and to make the torso appear longer, because, you know, penguins seem to basically be formed only by the torso. So let's start cutting chunks of her legs with a tool, and if you do something like this, always wear a mask, because you definitely don't want to breathe plastic dust. Now, to connect the various parts, we have to create a hole in the pieces that don't have already one. Now that our dolls look more beautiful than ever, I think that in each of my videos there will be a seed moment at this point, we can insert some wire in the holes and secure them with some hot glue. Then we can attach everything super securely using a strong B-component epoxy glue. Now we have our shorter but really strange looking legs, so we have to sand them with this tool that at this point is the true star of the video. And now, to create a stronger and much more good looking connection, we have to bring out the epoxy sculpt, that is a bicomponent air drying clay, and since it is a little on the toxic side, always use gloves while handling it. And while sculpting, always use some water to smooth everything and made a better connection from clay to plastic. I don't know if you noticed by the sketch, but I didn't give her any hands, because you know, penguins have wings, not hands, and because they are not feathery, I decided to simply make the end of her arm look rounded, using again hot glue, some wire and epoxy sculpt. Now it's time to smooth everything again, as I said before, with the true star of this video. It's time to paint everything. So, on the body I used some acrylic paint in the same grey color of the plastic to blend the mods, and I also made their feet black, like the ones of baby penguins. Then I made a gradient on her arms, from grey to white, also using a makeup sponge, always referencing obviously how baby penguins look. And finally, seal all the paint with a mixture of water and matte varnish. Now that we are done modifying the body, let's work on her clothes. That consists in a checked shirt with puffy sleeves, a skirt with overalls and some socks. Firstly, I'm working on the skirt, creating a base and a waistband. Then trace and cut 3 rectangular shapes folded in half in various lengths to create the ruffles on the skirt, and the bottom of the base, and gotta stitch the top to the length of the waistband. And even if you don't see it every time, I'm always ironing the seams with my hair straightener. Now take some ribbons, which I later replaced with some stripes of black fabric, because I didn't like how they look, to create the overalls. So place them like this to check the positioning, and then stitch them in place. Gotta stitch all the 3 rectangular parts from before. And sew them one by one on the base of the skirt. Now sew the waistband to hide all the gathered parts on top and make it lay flat with the hair straightener. Add some closures and decorate it. And here is where I noticed that to be able to make her wear the skirt, I had to remove her head every time. So to make it more simple, I decided to add some hook and eye closure at the end of the overalls. After finishing the skirt, we start working on the shirt, and since I don't have any fancy fabric, I decided to modify this one with white and blue stripes by creating a checkered pattern with some black fabric paint. Now I'm taking apart a jacket from an apple white to get a pattern for the puffy sleeves. And I'm altering it a little to make them a little less bulky. And in addition to it, I'm using an old pattern for a basic shirt. I'm tracing and cutting all the pattern pieces from my new fabric, and also using fray check on everything. Connect the top part of the front and the two back pieces. Gel stitch the bottom of the sleeves. And add a black cuff on both of them. Now connect the sleeves to the shirt, placing the pieces good side to good side and adding a lot of pins to keep everything in place. Place all the parts good side to good side and close the shirt. Hem the sides. And also the bottom. And to finish it, add some snap buttons as a closure. Now let's create the socks by hemming the top of two rectangular pieces, one shorter in black and one longer in white. Then stitch them close directly on the doll leg. And turn them right side. For the shoes, I found these beautiful ones, which I think are from the Goliath doll from before, and then giving them a new paint job with our usual main colors. After covering everything with some white paint, I'm adding some details with some silver paint, and also adding the usual checkered patterns all over the wedges. Then I'm covering the sole with some black paint. And finally the laces. I have to say that it took a while to paint them, but it was worth it because they seem really detailed. And for the other shoe, I simply reversed the colors. So, in the end, they were too tight. And in fact, in the process of putting them on, unfortunately, I broke one of the two legs. You can imagine my joy in having to redo the long process that I showed you before. So after the repair, I decided that from now on, I will not try to remove them in any way. But let's get over this unfortunate accident. So, for her hair, I decided to use these super cheap wigs. They cost like €5 each, and let's just say that you can see why. But I really didn't want to buy some hair, especially for dolls, from the internet. And so I think that from now on, I will probably only use yarn. I'm dividing and cutting the wigs into sections of more or less the same length, and because I want to do a wig, it's time to do some wefts! So, to create the half and half look, I'll do some white wefts with just a few black strands, and vice versa. And you can see that this process was really messy. In fact, I had to clean hair from my room for like 3 days. After the glue has dried, we can peel them off, and now we have a lot of strands. To create the wig cap, I've firstly protected the head with some plastic wrap. You'll see later that it was a really bad decision. And then I wrapped it with some stretchy fabric, and I covered everything with fabric glue. In fact, since after the hair will be boil washed, I couldn't use a normal vinyl glue. And while for this process and to create the wefts I could use a slow drying fabric glue, to attach the hair to the wig cap I would have needed one that dried quickly, but unfortunately, as you will see, I couldn't find it. And here you can see the tragedy, that damn plastic wrap was completely stuck with all the paint on the head, and to remove it I had to screw all the paint job and redo it later. And after all this, the wig cap didn't even look good because it was too big. I was so angry, but I calmed down and decided to do it again, and luckily it turned out well. Now I'm tracing the part with a marker, and here I'm showing you what I thought was the perfect fast-drying, water and heat-resistant fabric glue, but guess what? It didn't stick. So after trying like 3 others glue and not finding any alternatives, I gave up on using the super glue. Yes, it left some really hard spots, but at least it did what a glue is supposed to do. So I started with the part attaching 2 wefts of opposite colors really snug to each other and separating them from the others with some clips. And then I started filling one side with white and the other with black, starting from the bottom and going up. Now relieve this puffy mess by pouring hot boiling water on top of it, in order to make the hair lace flat. Give it an haircut. And our doll wig is finally done. And now it's time to reunite the head to the body by heating it with an hairdryer, because we are going to sculpt details on it that could get damaged in the process of reattaching the head to the body. And now let's create a cocoon of plastic to protect our doll from any stain. Side note, I don't know why, but I find the word cocoon super funny. It has such a strange sound that makes it super funny to pronounce. Am I the only one? Am I crazy? Probably. So, now I'm using again epoxy sculpt to cover the holes where the hair was rooted, cause I want to give her a look similar to the Exalotto doll from Doll Motion. So I basically want her to be bald, but wear a wig every now and then. Then I also sculpted her little and cute beak. And as always, when everything is dry, sand all the parts with our fantastic tool. And to make the connection with the super squishy head as stable as possible, add some super glue. Paint the scalp in black, and the beak firstly with a base of grey, and then dry brush it with black to make it more realistic. Then, as always, seal everything with some matte varnish, also to make the surface smoother for the face-up. And in fact, it's time to start the face-up. And because I don't want to use MSC, I'm using some Watered Liquitex matte varnish as a sealant, and I'm applying it with a makeup sponge. Firstly, I'm blushing the face with some soft pastels. I'm so sorry that the shot at this stage changed often, but I realized that many times you couldn't see what I was doing at all. In fact, this video was recorded before the Griffith one, and I think that I found a position to show you the process of the face up at its best only in that one, so I will try to explain what I'm doing with words. So now I'm starting sketching the eyes with a watercolor pencil, and I decided to do them very wide and in a sort of tear shape to make them similar to those of real penguins. And I also did some really big irises to make her look more cute. Now I'm painting the lips really thin, with some pearl, silver and a little bluish acrylic. A really strange color. I made a gradient from a darker grey to a lighter one on the eyebrows. And now I'm starting to color with acrylics the parts of the eyes that I drew before. In fact, in the end, in my face ups, I use almost exclusively the acrylics, because I'm not really good at drawing. And fun fact, in the middle of this project I ran out of black acrylic and I couldn't buy any for the lockdown, so I did the majority of this face up with black fabric paint, and it held up surprisingly well. Now I'm doing my biggest nightmare, the eyelashes. And because I almost immediately gave up on making them thin, they turn out a bit chunky, but not so ugly. Let's say that...
This is a look.
Let's add some light blue eyeshadows to add a little bit more of the accent color, and yes, now she seems a bit like an housewife in the 80s. I colored the irises with black and silver acrylics, and I'm adding some glitters that in the end you can barely see because they didn't stick really well. And now to add some dimension, I'm painting a sort of ring light with a light grey and some little stripes in darker and lighter shades of the same color. And I'm adding a catch light as a final touch. In the end, I think she looks really cute and young. It's definitely not complicated or detailed as other doll artists' works, but for now I like this cartoony and simpler style. Let's just hope that over time I will improve a bit. And now it's time to create our last part, the tail. As you can see, I'm shaping an armature made bending two wires together, and if your single piece of wire is already stiff, I strongly advise you not to do it, because in the end my armor was so hard that the tail practically can't be posed. Using the motion method for birds' wigs and tails, I'm covering my armor with some fabric. Then I took a lot of feathers and I'm cutting them to create teeny tiny feathers in doll scale. And I'm attaching them in layers from the bottom to the top with some fabric glue. And adding some spare feathers fluff at the end. And and after finishing one side, you obviously have to do also the back. And to attach it, let's drill a hole on top of our doll's booty and secure it in place with a lot of epoxy glue. I also made some final accessories like some bracelet made with polymer clay canes and super tiny beads, and a purse made with UV resin and beads. And now it's time to dress her! If you see some pink poking out of her shirt, they are pom-poms that I put into the puffy sleeves to make them look more voluminous. And here is Holly Penguin. So, as soon as I learned about the collaboration, I immediately imagined making a penguin doll, because I like them very much. And I'm really happy with how she came out, because she looks really cute and sweet as I envisioned her. So now, tell me in the comments what is your favorite animal, and obviously I also want to know what you think about her. Have a nice day and bye!